We're rolling.
We're rolling.
And we're here at James Dant, a store for men. Did I say that right?
Yes.
All right. Nailed it. Nailed it. First take. Nailed it. So this is Forging Flame. It's, the podcast you've been listening to thus far, where we talk to all sorts of creative people who do cool stuff about how they do that, how they make their art or thing happen. And today we're here with good old Tommy James Dant II. Throw out the full legal name at you. And here in your shop. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for welcome to my shop, I guess.
And what a shop it is.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm Nick Hinton. With me is
Ryan Selleck,
the homie.
In case you forgot. I'll go ahead and start by saying that due to this past week being a little crazy, I'm not prepared for this at all. I accidentally prepared for the wrong guest. I got my wires crossed, and to prepare for this, I was listening to a lot of rap music.
Nice.
So when I walked into your shop, I'm like, wow, this is nothing like the music I was listening to. But yeah, I'm thoroughly impressed with this shop, man. Like immediately I walked in and the smell hit me, and then just everything about the vibe is so on point here. And first thing I said to Tommy pretty much was I could spend like at least a couple hours just looking around at everything here. Everything's so meticulously placed and just feels so good. I just want to hang out in here.
That's part of the design.
Nice.
It's like a cool guy museum. It's like, but I mean, legitimately though, there is so much, and it's so curated, that it has a feeling of deliberacy. Is that a word? Deliberateness?
Yeah.
Whatever that word is. You know what I mean?
Intention.
Yeah, intentional. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I've been using that word a lot lately.
It's a powerful word.
It is. Yeah.
But it's there's so much to see that, I mean, you could treat it like a magic eye painting, right? Like where every time you make a pass, there's something new to discover, but it's not too much. It's perfect, Tommy. Great job. Great job.
We didn't want to, that was one of the things with all the decor and the little things that we've collected over the years, is we didn't want it to feel like what are those restaurants? I don't know, like Applebee's, or
Shenanigans.
Shenanigans. Yes. That's the first one that came to mind, but I didn't know if that reference would land. But we intentionally place things, but it's also just, it's part of the joy of this that I get to buy things that I like that aren't for sale too, because I do that all day. I buy things.
Yeah.
I buy things that are for sale, and then I have to find a way to get out of here. But part of the joy of having your own space, and a space that becomes a second home to you, is buying things that get to remain. And that's all the I think the little detail that you see, and the feeling of intention that you feel in here.
And this is something that I don't necessarily feel I see people doing too often. When it is, it's your thing, it's your shop, it's your brick and mortar, or even just like your website. There is very much the distinct impression of you-ness in here. Mm-hmm. It feels like this is a place that a person built. And yeah, it's just there's a lot of flavor in here, man.
Yeah,
it's probably just because I'm in all the fucking pictures, and then when people walk in, they see me, and it's like, oh yeah, you own the place. But I get that. I get that a lot from reps and just other people that I work with. They're like, wow, you're on your website a lot. And I'm like, it's honestly, I would prefer not to have to put on and take off clothes 100 times in a week to get pictures, but I am the cheapest. I am the cheapest, and I know what I want, and it just makes it easier when I can go home and throw on a shirt, and then guess what? I sell it in 2 days because I got a picture of it on body. That's that side of the little behind the curtain side for you.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with results.
Yeah.
I did hear you say on another podcast interview you did, God, probably a couple of years ago now, you referred to this place as being like your own personal closet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you treating it like a library and checking pieces out and putting it back on the rack, gently worn, a little more?
It is. It's
patina?
funny you say that, because we actually started before all this craziness hit. We started a gently used section.
Yeah.
So my shop manager, Zach, what we do is part of our love of this industry is when we travel, we visit other stores. We make it a point to go visit a lot of the brands that sell to us. And he was in Sweden and stopped by a couple stores that do what we do, but just with that flair, that European flair. And they had gently used sections, and that's one of the things they talked about is how people ate it up. And I was like, I don't know, here, like we have a lot of vintage stores. There's already people in that side of the market that have taken it up, and we started doing it here. He started bringing back stuff. He's very much a kind of a minimalist, but he purges. He'll go through these phases where he just like, I'm not wearing it. I got to get rid of it. It's serving me no purpose. It's not part of my wardrobe anymore. I got to keep a small closet. And he would start bringing like Red Wings in, and it makes perfect sense when you think about it. I actually even bought a pair back from him because they were so well patinaed to put up as a marketing tool to show this is what these things look like if you wear them really hard for a year and a half. But at first it was just I don't know if they'll sell or not. I don't know if people are going to want to put on shoes that we've worn and we've dirtied up, and people ate it up. And it may sound like it's like I'm like greedy, like trying to get my money back on money I've already made, but it's more a symptom of this industry, right?
Sure.
Like we work with a lot of companies that focus on their impact on the environment, and there's no better way than giving something use than throwing it in the dumpster, you know? Like,
right.
If I'm not going to wear it, why let it sit in a closet? And if I don't want it anymore and I do have to purge, I'm not going to throw it away. And rather than give it to someone, you know, that may not have the best intentions for it, like some of the repurposed stores out there, like we can get it into people's hands that will give it a second life.
It only makes sense, and that's the beauty of having your own space, is you can do whatever the fuck you want, you know? And I mean, like, I get what you're saying, you know, you don't necessarily want to step on the toes of like smaller or independent thrift stores, what have you, but you also have a very specific sort of a vibe to the stuff that you carry in here. So if you're keeping it within like a somewhat narrow scope of what you'd even accept as like a secondhand item, I mean, and especially with the types of items that you're selling, right? Like a $300 or $400 pair of jeans is not just that expensive because it's like the hot, cool thing. It's also something that's made with a certain level of quality, right? That if it's cared for and it does look a little more rad on the other side, you know, it's probably still going to hold up for a while. And that's what matters. So
yeah, that side of it is super fascinating to us, just because that's the story behind almost everything, that the product will age well with you. And so to see that stuff come back and see people have shifted in weight or just shifted in lifestyle, and we get to see that stuff. We had major intentions to even start kind of a buyback program. I mean, the gently used program is a buyback program, but to get a wall full of worn-in denim, we wanted to do a like discount program, and we had to shift in multiple ways because of everything that's happened with COVID. But some of the things that I think I forget about because we're so headstrong and just like moving forward is that we had all these ideas for other things that we can no longer accomplish without having people here. I can't take on a whole lot of gently used stuff because I don't have the flow of people in to see the section full of gently used. I don't, and it's a lot of effort to put that stuff up online.
Sure.
So, but the other thing is that wall we wanted to create, and it's not an original idea. A lot of the denim companies out there that are selling this stuff that, you know, fades to a green color as it ages or has this just beautiful texture as time goes on, they buy back in a discount system. They'll buy back the denim and make a wall out of it, and then it becomes art. So we were trying to fill a section of the store with that before all this started, but it's one thing that just got pushed to the back burner.
Yeah, in terms of priorities, I can see how
giving people discounts on bought back denim is not in our best interest at the moment.
Right. But I mean, still something that long term and maybe with a bit more like re-instilled normalcy in the day to day, something that I assume will very much have legs again. So
Yeah.
cool, very cool idea.
Yeah, it's something that took time too, and we were talking about this before the podcast started, but things like seeing how things evolve and where people started and where they are now, and how that's like a big part of what drives me to pay attention to other entrepreneurship, and what drew me to entrepreneurship is that evolution. We didn't have the legs to do something like that originally. We would have been buying denim from people that bought it from another store,
right,
and we're bringing it to us with random labels that we've never sold. Where now we've built enough of following and enough of a customer base that they're bringing back stuff that they bought from us. They've been with us for long enough. And that's in itself really like a beautiful thing, to create a wall full of denim that like people put work into, or shirting, or just anything that people put work into, based on this idea that you brought to the table in Indianapolis and people latched on.
Now, is there ever a circumstance where you buy back an article, or maybe it's not even something that was purchased at your store, but is on brand in one capacity or another? Is there ever a circumstance where the used version would carry a higher price tag than the original version?
So probably not in most of the contemporary stuff, but there is denim out there from further back in time that I kind of have the knowledge of, but you almost have to be in that game and see it every day. And there's a huge market for it in California,
sure,
where you'll show up. There's a show out there called Inspiration that's really, really awesome, and it's open to the public. And just some of the biggest vintage hunters in the world, like Jason Momoa was there the last time I went, and just all these really cool, like really influential people on Instagram that are influential because they have a store, or they have a really unique concept with vintage. We're at this show, and the prices are pretty inflated, but that's where that comes into play, like finding old red tabs in the Levi's world, or finding, pants that date before that. And there's guys that travel the world trying to find them to then sell them as patterns for companies making reproductions of them. Yes and no. I think stuff moves too fast now.
Sure.
To answer that. Like, even from like Naked Famous, they've released some really, really cool stuff. But I think there might be a couple scenarios, like something they released 10 years ago and it's not to be found anywhere, and there's something really unique about it. We could potentially make a little more money on it than it was originally sold for. But
sure,
I think there's not enough of a market for it for us to really like explore it. If something comes along, we've had it. Someone brought us a pair of Chuck Taylors from when they were still made in America.
Okay.
And there's people out there that hunt these things down, and we sold them for 3 times what a pair of new ones made in China cost.
Wow.
So a little bit here and there.
Sure.
It's not part of the main model, but it's a little like fun side hustle.
I only ask because when you talk about, something having a worn-in look, and then reselling that, I go back to this memory I have of working with a guy in heavy industry, where heavy-duty workwear was a must, steel toes, the whole nine. And this guy he was a truck driver that I met, and he had this Carhartt jacket that looked like he had probably had it for 20 years, and it was the big, thick, heavy canvas Carhartt. And it was just so beat to shit and full of holes. It looked like it could have been moth-eaten, but it was just because he had genuinely owned it for more than a decade and wore it every single day. So, but I would have paid twice, just to have that jacket that he had. I would have paid twice what the brand new one without all the damage and wear.
Yeah. I think I spent a lot of time waiting for those opportunities to come through the door.
Yeah.
But I always hope that when I see that would be something where like right on that wall right there would go that jacket, we'd put it in a frame, and you see a lot of that in this industry in the proper ways. But that's something we've kind of moved into over the last 6-8 months. The idea of having the success now to have the kind of a little bit of excess money to do that and spend time buying stuff that doesn't have any future purpose of making us money other than to be inspirational, Yeah,
it fortifies your brand, right? Mm-hmm. Just kind of adds more validity to what it is you're trying to accomplish. Every little bit of something that just kind of falls in line with with what you're already doing. I just feel like that, that kind of bolsters you, like regardless of what your industry is, it's just nothing but good stuff.
Yeah. And it's fun. That's what we found throughout this too. The little kind of silver linings we're finding of having to quarantine and change the idea of what normal is having fun with this again. Like changing the model can be extremely refreshing. You get even things that you love doing. If you do them too often, you get burnt out on.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so being here, I was for 6 years straight, it wasn't out of the norm for me to work 70 and 80 hours a week and more. And when tax season came, when all these unfun parts of the business that people don't talk about come, like working those hours and not spending time with family. And so to be able to change our model and have that free time and tinker with the things that I like to outside of it it rejuvenates you. And I've really enjoyed being able to see the store through a different set of eyeballs.
So what is that pivot looked like for you specifically? I mean, so your store is not open to the public right now. What is the COVID shift spelled
So
out?
we initially wanted to make the right social call, right? We wanted to make sure that people around us were safe, and there was no thought for what that looked like other than we're not going to put other people at risk in order for our business to succeed, no matter how bad we want it to. So it was just an initial, we have to shut this down. Sure. Luckily for us, the last 2 years has been spent trying to grow our market outside of Indiana, outside of even the United States. And so it was a slow trudge. It went from something that was very minuscule, like most businesses do. But when you have developed something, you want everything to fire off automatically. And so to have to reset that, to be like, well, we're just not going to do as well online as we had hoped, and we're going to dump a lot more money into this than we're going to get back out of it. And then it started to pick back up last year or two. We had the basis. Luckily, like very, very luckily, we had started our online store as a way to grow our market further, because the initial concept was, let's bring retail back to what it was, right? Let's have these in-person conversations. Let's tell the stories. Let's let people touch and feel things and feel what it's like to come into a store where every little thing has been curated to the point that the smells are on point, and what you see and how you see it is built, as an experience. Like it's like the Disney World of retail, every little thing needs to be immaculate was the initial concept. And it got to that point, but in order to grow that market, we had to start our online store, and that set us up for transitioning to that a lot easier. So I think where other people struggled that had just started their store 2 years ago or last year, or even right before this all started, they didn't have their web store, and they didn't have all these trials and tribulations that we had to be able to try things. And just luckily enough, the things that we tried really worked. Doing front facing, I guess the back side of the camera, front facing camera feeds where I just talk about product, having Zach film me in the most unprofessional but real way, and me film him talking about the product, and doing the stuff that we do on a daily basis anyways, but spreading that to potentially, 50,000 people if it catches on. We've got around 11 on the profile right now that can see it, and you don't always get all of that, but if something catches just right, which it did multiple times at the beginning of this, it may not translate to this person in front of me right now. I can talk about this product, and then they feel some kind of, not necessarily obligation, but they just feel some type of way about this product that they didn't before. Where online, it's easy to be passive about it. We have a broader market of people to hit. So if even 5 of those 50,000 go place an order, we're having a pretty good day. Yeah. It was just finding out things like that and finding ways to get excited about, oh, well, the best thing for us right now is to take the product home so that I don't have to be in the store for as many hours to shoot on this background. It's just a wall that we painted really dark, and the pictures came out beautifully. We just never tried it before. We try it, they look beautiful. People really latch on to that because we have this dichotomy between the space that we show off all the time, and then giving people just even that visual cue of, now here's product. behind a different background, behind a different wall, simple shit that probably like anyone in the industry could have told us, but based on what we had to work with, we were doing it this way before, and this shift forced us to do it a different way, and now we'll never go back. So started with the idea of we're really pushing things online, to go back to my original point of just closing down the store. But then we got to a place where we're like, we've got to find a way to get people back in here. It can't just be, the like retail, husband and wife team of Zach and Tommy, like that kind of feeling. We really did start to feel like we were married. And we wanted to find a way to get people back in here in a safe manner. And once we had started selling masks, we knew we would have that crew of people that understood, we believe in the masks. We believe in keeping you safe. We believe in still getting you in here and having these appointments. But you have to, in a process that's already a lot of education, we had to re-educate our customers. And there's probably lots of people that haven't showed up since we closed, but we found a way to maintain and find ways to grow during a time where most people are just struggling to stay afloat, based on doing these appointments. So we are open Mondays through Saturday. Our hours are shorter too. And what it's made us realize is like, it's like the whole thing people talk about staying at home, right? Why would I go back? If I can be as productive here and I don't have to have the hour commute to work and I don't have to waste my personal time, taking breaks at work and doing all these things, I can find 2 more hours in a day now and be more productive at home. Why would we go back to normal? Why do we need to go back to these positions where someone's lording over you just to make you get your work done?
Right.
And the same thing applies to this and many other industries. Why would we go back to being open 7 days a week and killing ourselves to make the same amount of money when we can have a much happier life? And even if we had to, cut sales by a little bit to have more of a good way of life, like we're going to do that now. This has been that eye-opening, awakening experience for us to be like, this is the thing it sucks that this was what it was, but this is what we need to realize we're not doing this right. We can be doing this better. We can be serving our customer better, and then find a way maybe to be open a couple days a week, 2-3 days a week when this all opens back up. But we've had the free time to figure it out.
Yeah. And I mean, it really sounds like it serves a lot of purposes for you too, because I mean, yeah, you probably do need to be open as much as possible while you're establishing yourself, right? Mm-hmm. While you're getting that sort of brand awareness, both like locally and abroad. You need some good footage of a busy shop day, mm-hmm. To really sell your own. What's the word I'm looking for? The the thing that gives people trust in you, right? Mm-hmm. Like makes you seem like you know what you're doing, and
building that level of legitimacy.
Yeah, exactly. But when you trim things down, right, and you shift to online sales, and then this appointment based thing. For one, I'm sure your shrink is absolute zero now. You're not losing anything at all to petty theft.
That has been quite a joy.
I'm sure. And the bane of every retail store owner ever, right? But and not just that, but you're exclusively dealing with clientele who are buying. Mm-hmm. Have you had any of those appointments where someone didn't pick something up?
1 in 4 months.
Okay.
Wow.
I mean, you're
That's
awesome.
Just
trimming away all the bullshit, not to, diminish anyone who's just coming to take a look and maybe price shop or see what a piece like this might cost me, because I certainly milled around in your shop, for a good little while before I bought my clearance Indy 500 t-shirt. I love that t-shirt though. But it seems to have been a thing that just kind of clears out a lot of unnecessary noise, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Refines everything a bit.
Yeah. I can't sum it up in any other way than really good timing, which sounds fucking insane, right? Good timing for a pandemic, but it really was a point where stress, anxiety, personal things were happening in my life where if something didn't break, mm-hmm. I probably would have, in place of it breaking, I would have been the thing to break.
Yeah.
And this would no longer be in existence. Everything funnels through me. And it's allowed me to realize that that's pretty stupid too. Like that's no way to be running a business that you plan to have longevity.
Right.
And so having the time to have a better personal life, to have more fun in the store, and to process what it looks like for me not to be here as much, it's been really, like I said, rejuvenating, refreshing, all those little things. And there's obviously problems that come along with it, but the gain from having time to reflect has been pretty incredible.
Well, not to pick apart any old wounds or anything, but can you dig a bit deeper into some of those moments where you felt especially close to cracking? I mean, what drove some of your darkest moments to date?
Oh man. Well, this last year for many reasons has been really hard, but my personal life, a lot of things happened in my personal life. My dad passed away, who was one of the people who helped me build this entire space. So, we started on the other side of the store that the viewers can't really see right now, but we started with about 1,000 square feet. We had a little bit of backroom space, and the space looks much different. It's actually kind of funny because you can go on Google right now and see what the store looked like when we first opened. We haven't taken, it's one of those things that fell in the back burner, the Google 360 views. Yeah. Like we haven't updated it yet, so it still looks like, and I think people go sometimes and they're like, what the hell is this place? Like it looks so different, but we were really just bootstrapping it from the beginning and working on such a tiny budget for a clothing store when most people start with hundreds of thousands of dollars in inventory and a build out. And we were starting with around $25,000. And it's such a small amount to get that space off the ground. So my dad and I did everything. I grew up kind of working odds and ends jobs with him whenever I needed some spare change. Instead of like just handing me an allowance, he would have me come work on one of a rental property or have me come work on a construction site with him. So my dad was a carpenter by trade, and he always had this kind of brute force mentality of get the job done. He was very good at what he did. He could have been an accountant, incredible with numbers, could do measurements in his head, like in a way I've never been able to figure out. The kind of thing where he did everything really solid. Everything was built solid. He wanted to build homes like they used to be built, just with the tools that were available to him now, and didn't cut corners and wasn't trying to get something over on someone else. So he had all of those skills, and I had the whatever it was from. I didn't go to design school. I just saw things in a certain way. I saw things like this. And he was the catalyst to me being able to develop that. He was the driving force behind building this space. So we started on that side in 2013 and built everything there, and then built as we went too. Whenever we needed a fixture, I would call him and he'd show up with a screw gun and some tools, a circular saw, things like that, to build things on site. And you can kind of tell it in that space. We've done things to change it since then, but if I were to walk through and tell the stories, you could see how it was kind of hodgepodge together to make the thing work. Where when we got to this side, the space became available and I almost didn't take it. And I would have been kicking myself infinitely had I not. Now that it's here and we've been able to expand the vision to twice the size. But we developed this space with 3 years of history, 3 years of experience, and everything came together at once. And so it was one of those things that I was talking about where someone starts a store with $100,000, we didn't have that much, but we had to develop this, to the same level as what we had done on the other side. Right. And so that's a whole challenge in itself. And to that, we didn't really get the response we had been hoping for. So that was to circle back around. That was one of those moments. One of my really low points was, holy shit, we're doing so well. We can't fit everything in this one side that we have. We need to take over this space. Yeah. Tough decision as it is. Double my rent, double all of my costs, have to have more people on site. My overhead just shoots up. And I open it up, and that next year we did about like 0.5% better. And I was like, holy shit, I just dropped all this money into the space and got no response. And I was angry in a way. I was angry at the people in the city, and that didn't see that we had taken this next step. But looking back in reflection now, it was just not that they weren't ready, but it took time to develop. It took time to develop the experience of a two-sided space and develop the extra product. And we were kind of just throwing this massive idea at people that we have a bigger space now and expecting immediate response. And it took a year, but the after effects of that, the 2 years down the road effects of that have been massive. And I just wasn't patient enough at the moment.
Sure.
So that was definitely one of them. And there's probably others. I think one of the most testing times for me was we were open previous to COVID. We were open 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. And if I were to have an employee move on or have to move on from an employee, I would take over the full responsibilities of the store again, solo, running a space with all these outside factors we talked about, the shrinkage, the people coming in who have no interest in what you do at all, people who take cracks at you because you're expensive, because that's a thing. Like in our society, like someone choosing to tell a story and make something, it's a really easy jab at somebody to be like, well, fuck you, you're expensive.
Right.
So like those little things, those little jabs building up, and having to work. I think one season someone left me in September for another job, and I was on for I think about 65 days straight.
Oh wow.
And that's in-store hours from 11 a.m., just open hours from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. because we were in the height of our like busy season. And at that time, it was the mentality of, you know, we have to be open as many hours as possible and catch as many faces as possible. And so, yeah, that was about it. Like getting to Christmas and finally having a day off and being like, this is intense. This is, I still love this, but this is insane. This cannot go on.
That's brutal, man.
Yeah.
That's a long time to be working without a break. That's
It was intense.
Yeah, you've been dealing with a whole lot of whirlwind work efforts there, Ryan Selleck. You holding it together all right, buddy?
I'm making it.
Yeah.
Almost canceled today. It was that bad. It was just constant since we launched. Same type of deal. Like not same type of deal at all, because man, this the amount that you have to keep organized in your brain just completely baffles me. Like it makes me feel like a chump. I'm joking, of course, but I mean, you know, it's a tough run being I don't want to accuse you of being a workaholic or anything, but I know that life.
Accuse away. It's definitely something that I've realized and probably need counseling for, but
you both also seem to have that perfectionist thing going on.
Oh yeah. I can definitely pick up the perfectionist vibe here. Like one of the things I was telling Tommy off camera is that, like everything just so meticulously placed, just look down, and even like the t-shirts were just at this slight angle. And that's the kind of thing that a lot of people might not notice, but like it really helps your eye kind of move around the store. Like it makes you want to really look around. Everything is just so well in place. So
yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about having more time and actually having employees too, is some of that stuff would fall by the wayside if I didn't have someone to teach how to do it, or even when I can bring in someone like Zach that I mentioned earlier that already has those skills. And it's beautiful to see that vision through someone else, to let go a little bit of that control and see someone take over your vision and do it most of the time even better than what I see it as.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's nice to let some of that control go.
That's probably the single hardest thing that anyone in business ever has to deal with, right? Is creating this thing, and it's very much your baby, and then like giving it to someone else and just trusting that they're not going to drop it on its fucking head, right? Like I dealt with that with my short-lived snack business. I mean, just even trusting someone else to work the fryer, you know, and make the stuff. I was like, oh God, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it right. But sure enough, I just needed to get out of the way and let them do the thing, and everything was fine, you know. But yeah, And also, I feel like it's worth mentioning, just as a kudos to you, the second space looks very much like it was always intended to be yours.
Oh, yeah.
At least now. So good on you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Of course.
It's, I was saying I don't get as much time it's nice to be sitting on this side of the store because I get to see it from a different perspective. I'm always behind the desk working on something and, designing something, sending some email, and to see it from like this sitting position is fairly nice.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned designing because, of course, we're primarily focused on talking about the creative process and then all the little tendrils of conversation that come off of that. But so you actually are doing some clothing designing these days. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So it's not start to finish. It's not where I sit down and lay out a pattern and do all of those things. I actually don't have that background because I focused more on the business side of things. I wanted to really have that locked in because of what I see a lot of the times in, and I may be projecting a little bit that I had this foresight when I was in college, but what I see a lot of the times with creatives now is people that are so fucking good at doing this one thing, but they can't fucking get it to you. Like I need you to do this one thing and I can sell it all day long and it's really great. And I need you to get the price right on it and this and that stuff is just right over their head. It's all about the creation of the thing.
Yeah.
And I knew I needed to rein in that because I was pretty creative as a kid, but couldn't start to finish something.
Sure.
And so that like going to school for an entrepreneurship degree really helped me lock in that problem solving skill. And so the creative side of it, I guess, kind of falls by the wayside a little bit, again, to use that same term. But I've used my problem solving skills essentially to work around that I don't have necessarily the cut and skill. So the cut and sew skills that I need to start to finish a garment. And there's a lot of that's the nice thing too. I have the ability to make that happen, so I can piggyback off of the skills of people that I know in the industry and the connections I've made. Why am I going to try to develop the best shirt in the world when I already know the guy that makes the best shirt in the world? I can have him tweak it slightly or develop a fabric that I want or do some kind of collaboration where he doesn't typically have the money or the wherewithal to do this thing, and I can introduce that idea and we can do it together. And I just feel like there's a little bit lost there. There's probably some purists that would say like, fuck this guy, he doesn't actually design things from scratch, and a lot of designers out there. But if I can spread that money and spread those skills and all of those things that go into it, if I can spread that to someone who can't lock in the business side of it and make money for their business, I feel very happy about that. I feel very complete in that, not having to go in the back room and sew something start to finish. Mm-hmm. So we worked recently with one of your podcasts, your earlier podcast guest with Mike G and WDRFA. We've been doing stuff like that. Yeah. And working alongside LM, who's a local bag maker, to develop this thing and do the R&D and dive deep and develop this thing that was super unique and turned out incredibly well. And then in turn sold really well.
Yeah, all that stuff. That latest line is super sharp, and I've seen the stuff that you did with WDRFA in the past. But man, that backpack is so sexy.
That's slick. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, they it surprised us too. We I think people see the finished product and you try to show them as much as you can along the way, and even when you do, it's still a little hard to grasp anything but that finished product. But for us, there's a lot of anxiety inducing moments. Like, are we doing the right thing? Are we choosing the right fabric? Are we choosing the right price points? Like, a lot goes into pricing a product. It's wild what that can do to make or break your release, what that does to the creative process. So
it seems to worked out this time, right?
Yeah, it worked out really well. And it just keeps shocking me. I mean, I feel like I know what I'm doing at this point, but there's still moments where question my sanity and question whether what I'm doing is right. And I think that's important. I think you can kind of go off the rails if you don't.
Yeah. You got to check in every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
Just make sure that you're not just way the fuck off out in space, you know?
I think that's what we see with a lot of people who do lose their businesses, is they just become so disconnected. And that's one of the main reasons I don't want to just up and leave the store and be like, let other people run it now. Like, I've created this machine, let it work. Like,
Sure.
there needs to be little guys everywhere injecting oil and tinkering and messing with things, you know, and I may still have to be a big portion of those hats. I may have to wear all those hats in order to tinker and play with it. But I think it keeps me grounded.
Well, hopefully you'll get to a point to where, you know, maybe you've got to do a bit of tinkering, but it's all just like telling people in other locations, you know, what is the proper sort of tinkering to stay within the guidelines of the brand.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk before about potentially opening another location. I know that current times would say that that's a ridiculous concept, but
Yeah.
you know, in a perfect situation, is that something you're still contemplating?
Potentially. It's actually been on the back burner for quite a while. Going back to that idea of like being at a breaking point, that our 3-year anniversary was the major one for me. We had all these ideas of expansion. We were growing really rapidly, which is not abnormal in a small business. Like, you start off with $200 in sales. It's not hard to, you know, get to 400, you know,
Right.
But when you get to 200,000, it's hard to get to 300,000. When you get to
Sure.
it's those levels that, can be kind of taxing and trying to build a support structure so that you can give all these things to your employees that you believe in, you know, being able to get to a place where you can treat your employees better than a corporation can, because there's all these things that a corporation is afforded to, healthcare and benefits and these packages that they hand out to give to people that have to kind of sell their souls to do a job they don't really want to do. Working towards that and having these goals in mind, it can weigh on you to try to get to that next level. But that was where we were at 3 years, right? We were like, well, we could open a second store. We could do a pop-up in a barbershop. We could do all of these things that would expand our reach physically, or we could step back and take a little mental break and get our mental health in check as a store and as the person running the store. And that has been so successful, taking that time to take a break and grow outwardly while maintaining what's happening on the inside.
Right.
I talked to a lot of people that were in positions of mentorship and, whether they wanted to be or not, that were like, yeah, I've heard stories, or I've done this, I've opened a second location. And because I wasn't ready for it, one of them had to die. And I didn't want either of them to die if I was going to do that. And it's been on the back burner for so long that I think it's, potentially something that in the future, I think exploring is exciting. Exploring that idea is really exciting to me, but it's nowhere in the realm of my goals at the moment.
It's still just a shiny thing for the time being. I get it. Yeah, it seems like, well, of course, you know, right now, who would be foolish enough to try and launch a brick and mortar store anywhere? But okay, so 5 years down the road, everything's just rainbows and sunshine. Where is James Dant II?
Yeah, that's like a funny way to think about
like
it. Yeah. The initial concept where everyone was like, are you going to have like 4 or 5 stores and I think I deal with a lot of this, like shifting other people's ideas and letting that go, that this is the right thing for you to do, when I know the right thing for us to do. Ultimately, I'm always going to know that, and I may fuck up along the way, but like, I know what our next path is. That vision is always going to be there for me. And from the get, it's always been, I would never open a second shop in Indiana.
Oh yeah.
This is the kind of thing where we're looking at Denver. I mean, I had pretty big aspirations that I had to pull back on, and that ultimately led to the growth that we've had. But, you know, Denver, Austin, places that didn't have a men's clothing store yet, or at least one that I felt was up to our standards. And quickly, I mean, that's where a lot of those conversations with mentors came in. They were like, if you move to Denver right now in the infancy of your business, you're going to lose everything you started here, and the other one's going to take off. You're going to fall in love with Denver and you're going to stay there. But I didn't want to brain drain either. Like, yeah. I think that's a conversation I've been having a lot lately, is as people are almost forced to come back here, people that I know that have moved to New York, and they're like, why am I going to pay another 6 months in rent, or month-to-month rent, or another year in rent, when I don't know if I'm going to be able to even leave my apartment to go get food for the next year. I'm just going to move back to Indiana and ride this thing out. And you see these like wonderful, creative people moving back here, and it just reinforces the idea that people leave. Like, people just, you know, they have these beautiful, wonderful ideas that could be implemented here, and they take them elsewhere. And all of that work was done to cultivate those ideas, and the seed was planted here, but you don't get to bring the crop to harvest. So it's not even really in the realm. Like, if I were afforded the opportunity, I might, you know, and I don't even know how I would do it yet, but that's the fun part of it, right? But like, I would love to have a store in Europe. I would love to have a store in Japan. Like, and those are the dreams for everybody. We haven't really seen someone in our industry accomplish that yet. There's a few people that have a store in like San Francisco, and they opened one in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and they go where the market calls them. They go where they see the need for this kind of product. So that would be the idea.
I could see this particular flavor of like Western men's apparel doing really well someplace like Japan. But I mean, I guess that's where a lot of your denim is coming from, or inspired by. Yeah,
that's what makes it hard. There's still a lot of logistical issues behind it. Sure. There's a lot of, if I've built this life for myself that I feel comfortable in, and I can spend time around really cool people in Indianapolis, people that really care about what they're doing, and remain satisfied. You know, never really satisfied, but find this level of satisfaction with knowing people that own really cool restaurants, and like the finest of the Coors and the finest of beers, and, you know, spend time really nerding out on this shit. If I can find my nerds and stay around them, and also be able to spend time around my family, that's like the best case scenario for me.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I don't know that at the moment my want to expand my creative process has reached that level of like, I need to go somewhere else and get this money.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you're probably right on the mark with just how measured you're being overall, and overextending yourself just leads to heartache pretty much 10 times out of 10, right? You know, unless you just like fumble your way into an optimal situation by pure happenstance. But yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right on the mark there. So stay the course, man. You know, it's working out for now, right? But
yeah, if we want to talk about actual design too, kind of something that flows along with that period that I had where I went through a really rough time and the beginning phases of a business. We did a rebrand last year. So our 5 year was our big unveiling of this thing that we felt like we should kind of always have. We knew that the branding that I had developed initially didn't quite keep up with where we were headed. So I finally reached out to someone and had them do our logo. And it was a really long process, even though I had been stewing on this for 3 years. It was just a super long process trying to find the right symbol. We can never find the right one. And that is where the gargoyle that you see in our symbol comes from. There's a super long story behind it that I could go on and on about. But one of the things, the reason I wanted to bring it up is because the gargoyle that you see in its form now is the omega form of Komainu, which is a Japanese lion dog. They're guardians of temples. They usually sit outside that classic orange and black like the pillars that you see that people walk through, and they sit outside temples. And the one, I believe, I'm probably botching it now, but in my research early on, the one on the left side was maybe it was right, but the one on the left side is the one that you're introduced to when you come in, and it's the open mouth. It's the alpha. It's like you're entering, and when you leave, you pass the omega, and its mouth is closed. It's a little more reserved. And we got to a place where like everything I was doing when I started was alpha. It had to be full force ahead, full steam. And maybe when I started the brand, I would have done the open mouth. That would have been more enticing to me. But even as the brand developed, it became more about being in that omega phase, being comfortable with who I was and how the store was developing and what we were doing. And so it's a little bit of the story behind it. Obviously the Japanese and even Chinese, with the fact that it looks a little more like a food dog. The styling is a little more cat-like, which is, sure. But we just really liked that imagery, blended with our American basis, but we carry so much Japanese product, like blending those two together and putting it in a symbol is where all that came from. But I still think one of the biggest insights I had into my own creative process and developing that gargoyle was making that decision. Like, I am in the omega phase. I am, whatever that means. I'm not dying as a brand, but I'm past the alpha stage. And that's why I chose to close the mouth on the gargoyle.
How do you feel about that symbolism, Ryan Selleck?
I love it, man. I like how you updated it. I like how it's staying relevant to your current phase and your current trajectory, your current vision and everything. Like, yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I love when things like symbols just have a big backstory behind them and it's interwoven in several different things. It's real nice. Yeah.
And now he's in a place where his business is being fortified by having to tighten up and have less of that wide open approach. And it's almost like unintentional magic spells, man. You cast a spell when you rebranded. So cool. One thing that I definitely wanted to ask you about, because we definitely don't want to trample all over the rest of your evening here, but as a person who just generally doesn't give too much of a shit, specifically in terms of appearances and how other people might perceive me, because I've always been of the mindset, right? Well, if like I've treated my generally pseudo-slovenly appearance as an armor of sorts, right? Like if you're going to discount me because of the way that I look, then I don't want to bother with speaking to you. It's always been kind of a fun game for me. Like, try me, talk to me, and we'll see if your preconceptions matched up with your later perception. But there are plenty of times in life where that's not really very effective, not a very efficient way of traversing things like business relationships or what have you. For someone with absolutely no sense of what is hip or fashionable or even looks good for a gentleman of my portly stature to wear, can you break down the process? Because it seems to me to be a heavily creative thing that just escapes me in every conceivable way. But what is the process of styling a human? I mean, you yourself have a very understated but very on brand sort of a vibe. And every time I've seen you in public or on the internet, you never have like a super ostentatious thing going on, but a very crafted look it's just, that's Tommy Dant, right?
Yeah.
But where do you start? I mean, how do you dress a person? What, like, where, I don't get any of it.
It's kind of the $1 million question. And my wife would actually jab fun at that I do wear, I have ostentatious rings. And it has like the confidence to like the things you like. I think not even just confidence in being like, I'm arrogant and I'm confident and I just am going to do whatever I want. That works a lot of the times, right? I mean, it works for the Kanye Wests of the world. It works for rappers. A little callback there. You can use that in your next one. But it really just for us, I mean, I probably would have answered this question differently years past, because I thought there was some kind of playbook or rule book, and I thought that I could write like 10 simple rules. And there are some things, but they've been done a million times. Like you can't beat blue jeans and a white shirt, like for having a nice pair of boots that wears with everything brown, like there's very simple steps you can take to cheat the system. But ultimately doing this is more about like, if you find self-worth in it. And I've had to let go of that too, because it would drive me fucking nuts when people would show up to fashion classes in like yoga pants and sweatpants and stuff. And I'm like, we're here to learn about fashion. We're here to, and I think through the store, it's almost like a personal form of therapy. You work out a lot of things. You work out shit that probably was like something in me that needed to be worked out. I still find that like there should be a generally acceptable level of appearance when you leave the house. Like there are things, and maybe that's just a little bit of nostalgia in me, that like, at least like put on some real fucking pants, or like, like I don't spend time really ruminating on it anymore, because we've gotten to this place where we work with people, and we bring people in, and we educate people on the process and the development of these brands and what it took to get there, in the story and all of those things. And we're finding more that it's the nerd side of it, right? Like, why do people show up to Comic-Con and spend hours and hours developing characters for themselves? Because it makes them feel good. Like, and we live in a world full of fucking terrible things sometimes. Like, there's a global pandemic trying to, eat away at a big sector of our population. And if there's not a better time than now to reflect and think about like what drives us to do this, I don't know what is, but what we keep finding and what we keep coming back to is like, we change our own perception on what we like to wear and what we like. I had notions of like, I'm not going to wear anything from a brand that I don't carry, because it's not going to help my business, right? If I wear a pair of Vans and I don't carry Vans in the store, it's not going to help my business move forward. But Vans bring me joy because I wore them when I was a stupid little like terrible skater kid, like picking up a pair of Vans brings me joy. I always wanted things as a kid that I couldn't have, and I'm not going to hold myself back from like picking up a pair of Nikes because like, fuck Nike, it's a corporation, or Converse. I love Converse. Same thing. I'm not going to hold myself back from things that bring me joy. And that's what we want other people to do. If this space brings you joy, if coming in here and talking to us brings you joy, it's more about that now to me than it is about trying to put people in boxes. Like I have too many really good friends that don't give a shit about fashion. I have too many cool people, intellectually minded people that I can have a beautiful conversation with, and I'm not going to let clothing be that barrier to entry. But for the people that really fucking care about it and want to come in here, or don't even care about it and want to have a conversation, I'm going to try to spread that joy and love of this thing that I love to them. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world to me. It's
sure.
And I don't know if that answers the initial question of like what the secret sauce is. But I think it starts there. I think it starts with storytelling, finding something about this world that you like. If you like history, right? Mm-hmm. There's tons of things that you can find in fashion that will drive you towards fashion. We have all kinds of historical pieces in here where the only person making that is in Japan now because of what happened in history. And we can tell you all about that. And we can tell you why they do it the way they do it, even if it's not to this homogenous liking of what the world wants right now. And they're going to continue to do it that way. And like those things, I think, going back to my shop manager, Zach, like he's taught me a lot of that. He loves stuff for its historical value. And there's a million things you can do with that. Like everybody's a nerd about something, right?
Sure.
And people can want to be so anti, right, that they're like, fuck fashion guys. Like because they feel uncomfortable personally about fashion. But if you can nerd out about something, so can I. I nerd out about Star Wars with people. I nerd out about, and it shows in the space. We have a little collection. Like I found ways to bring my personal hobbies and interests, and it turns into a breaking down of barriers. Like the barrier to entry is much easier when I can talk to you about cocktails, because I've personally started drinking really nice cocktails, and everybody's got something they nerd out about. If you can get on their level about that thing, like the thing you're trying to sell or the thing you're really passionate about falls away.
And you don't even really need to meet another person necessarily at their level with the specifics of what the thing is, because if you can just step back and kind of examine the overlaps conceptually of like, this is the thing that I nerd out about and this is the thing that you nerd out about, and they have this odd intersection of maybe it's, history and fashion, or maybe it's, Star Wars and podcasting. I mean, again, pick any two things, you're going to find something that's at least common conceptually. And yeah, that's some interesting food for thought, I think.
Yeah, that is an interesting way to look at it. Like, that's not something that fashion's pretty far outside my realm of thought. In fact, I think this may be the 5th or 6th time I've like worn real pants in the last like 6 months. Like it's, it's a little ridiculous at this point. So I'm definitely
right now.
That's okay. But oh gosh, where was I going with that? I got just so sidetracked. I'm just like, yeah, I was that guy.
Fashion.
Fashion. Yeah. Before we get too off topic with that, you mentioned like a good pair of boots that kind of go well with everything. And you really kind of honed in on their, on, personal interests and what is this person into? What are they nerding out about? Right. But, what are some like lowest common denominator things to pay attention to, like the boots? Like, does that make sense? I mean, where I'm kind of going with that, like little things that have a broad impact on a person's fashion.
Yeah, I think fit is one of the biggest things to start with. It's not even one of the biggest things. It is the biggest thing. People spend a lot of time trying to hide things. And I mean, you'll see this if you go and watch any, what are the shows called where they like make you up and make you over and fix your fashion, that people are wearing stuff 2 times too big or a size too small. Finding your right fit and having that vision. And if you don't, having someone that can tell you what fits you well and isn't just trying to sell you something because they work at Nordstrom, like finding someone who really cares about getting you the right fit and then going from there and trusting that too. Cause like you do have to be comfortable. We say that all the time. Like it's whatever you're comfortable in. If you come out in a pair of pants and you think they're too thin on you and we think they look great and you're like, I can't fucking move in these things, we're not going to force you into buying them. We want you to be comfortable. And we try to mold that as much as we can. There's some things that get outside of your realm and you're not going to stand in your own way to make a sale too. Sometimes if you're pushing on someone to say like, hey, this really fits you well in the smaller size. And they're like, no, I'm just not comfortable in it. And they want to leave here buying it. I'm not going to stop them from buying it. If they really want it, I'm not going to ruin that experience for them. But that's one of the first things we do is try to get people into the right fit. And then like general rules of thumb. I mean, you can use history as your context. And if you have to, like steel style, like blue jeans, white shirt, there is no going wrong there. But if you're going to do it, if you're going to just do that as your basis and start to feel comfortable in your own skin, buy the best fucking white shirt you can. Like don't buy a 5-pack and then think you're going to look good in them, because when you wash them once, they're either going to shrink up twice as much as they should, or they're going to bag out and then not fit you properly. Like go with something that has more value, spend more and get less, like it sounds insane. It's an insane concept for modern society. That goes against everything that we were taught as kids, like spend less and get more. It should be the opposite, right? You should be spending more money on things that bring you joy and value and only having one of them and marveling over that thing. And there's other simple rules too, but even 5 years ago, I would have come to you probably with a more succinct list, because I had that in my mind. I had my mind set up that I was going to be able to like hand out a pamphlet and be like, these are the things you can do to make your life easier in fashion. But things have changed so much. Like there's people dressing like they're from the 70s. There's people dressing like they're from the 60s and 50s and pulling it off on a day-to-day basis and walking around outside, especially in places like New York where it's not abnormal because they nerded out about, you know, they love Billie Holiday, so they want to start dressing like that era. Like there's people building their own personal branding now too, to the point where it can be a little gross sometimes where people are trying to make money on it. But a lot of the times I think it's just a symptom of people really like finding out who they are, and they build this personal brand around this thing that they love. So I think it's harder to answer that question now when I see somebody walk in something on almost a daily basis before all this happened that I'm just absolutely in awe of, you know, like I don't think I could wear that, but you're going to give me that little extra edge to maybe try it. Like I had this rule that I will only wear boots because I sell boots, and I think the process is better, and I think they're better for your feet. And I like made myself fall out of love with something that I was always in love with. I liked and loved skate shoes. I loved colors and things like that. But I think there's just this beautiful thing happening right now with fashion where anything fucking goes, and there's no rules anymore. There's no cliques. We're not this society built on the cliques that we were built on in high school, you know, like there's not the jocks and the nerds and everyone can be both a jock and a nerd. Like you can like to, you know, play basketball with your friends and then come home and nerd out on comic books. Like, and there's no, we're putting you in this box anymore. It's really like one of the things that people get freaked out about because it's changed, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see like this ability to just wear whatever. And if you are confident in it and you like it enough, you're going to pull it off. And to kind of like shoot that all in the foot. One of the things, if you are going for a more simplified style that we've come back to a lot, is if you like wild shit, right? You like graphic tees, you like a bright hat, you like bright shoes. Don't do them all at once. Some people can pull it off. I mean, people who have the ability to buy Balmain and like wear it with, you know, 70 other brands and do all this stuff, they're in a position of power or a position of wealth. They can do that. They can do it. But if you're trying to look for a simple style, something to walk out of the door with every day, only wear the graphic tee. Don't try to match the shoes to it. Like wear your white sneakers with your blue jeans with your funky graphic tee that talks about something that you really like, that portrays who you are to the world, or wear a very simple outfit and super vibrant sneakers. You know, it's like the Steve Jobs kind of, but cranked up a bit. Like find you, but don't go over the top with it. You know, like those little things can really help.
Well, I'm glad that you're not confining fashion to a hard and rigid set of rules, and you're not, you know, creating, you know, these boxes necessarily. I mean, having some loose guidelines, that makes a lot of sense, and I feel like, you know, sharing that information along to people who, like Ryan and I, have no clue when it comes to style necessarily. But for me personally, I'm thankful because it wouldn't be like a really nice pair of boots for me. It would be like a really nice pair of clown shoes. And Ryan laughs, but he laughs because I mean that very, very literally.
I'm joking.
I'm not at all joking, and I'm not just trying to be funny. I'm a broken person. But let's take that idea somewhat seriously for a second. If I had a vintage pair of clown shoes that just fit me perfectly and had a look that made me squee with joy, because I absolutely would. Ryan's seen my garage. He knows just how much I care about clowns. But where would I start with something that ostentatious, and maybe not necessarily super colorful, right? But, you know, maybe some nice red leather in there. What would you wear with something that extreme to really
if you were starting with
in?
just the shoes, my goodness. That is a curveball. My first thought is obviously to go with like a personal experience, not with clowning, but like stuff that's been happening to me lately. I really love this website that does, they do repressings of vinyl, and they put a ton of design and artwork into it, beautiful colors. But because of that, I jumped into like their t-shirt section and their pin section and things like that. And like, I really like Godzilla. I loved it as a kid, and I haven't had a chance to dive as far into it as I want to, but that may even be like subconsciously some kind of starting point for me with Japanese and Asian culture, and what made me fall so in love with the meticulous nature of how they develop things. Like, talking out my ass right now, but potentially like that's where it is. And I saw this shirt that had Godzilla in it. I'm probably not going to put a T-Rex costume on and go around town and like, you know, pretend like I'm a Godzilla. Right. There is levels to everything, right? Like, you don't want to wind up on my favorite obsession, but like you can take those things and modify them to the world that you love. Like, even when we talk about designing, we've been talking about taking some of our favorite comic book styles or some of our favorite movies and taking that and implementing it into like the denim itself. And it's something that one of our brands, Naked and Famous, does a lot. They implement their nerdiness, and we probably learned a lot from them, right? Like, I love those guys. I love spending time with them. But I think taking it in that manner, because probably if you walk down the street in a pair of clown shoes, people are going to look at you. And if you fucking love it, like, if you love it enough to do it, or go full clown and like do the clowning, you know,
that's like, always an option.
Like, take it all the way
in the chamber. Yeah.
Yeah. Take it all the way. But, finding ways to work that in, like, you know, there's so many options there. Like, you know, wearing a clown nose and like doing the whole, Robin Williams thing, like just putting a clown nose on, and it doesn't even have to necessarily involve fashion. I mean, I'm getting a little fucking way out here in space with this, but like, if you want to wear a shirt with a clown face on it, fucking do it. Even if like, maybe it brings you joy to freak people out with clowns. Like, that's how I would develop it into my like personal style.
I'm going to have to be on the lookout for a rather subdued pair of shoes that at least look like they could be clown shoes. Yeah. And then I'm going to come right to you. I'm going to say, Tommy, help me. And then we'll go from there.
I'm trying to think. There's a movie where some guy has a really hard time telling his friends that he doesn't like something that they do. And one of his friends wears these really bright pair of boots. And it reminds me of that instantly. And he got him into the boots. And the dude, because he was so non-confrontational, like wore the boots every time he was around the guy for like years. I'm spacing. The listeners will probably like, it'll resonate with them really quickly, but it's like this bright red pair of cowboy boots. And it's like the guy who had them loved them. And all he had to do is say like, man, I'm not really into that, but I enjoy that you're into it. And I think just taking out a lot of that like judgment, you know, and then finding confidence in that thing that you really love is important.
I think removing judgment and also helping fortify confidence that others feel within themselves is probably a pretty groovy human sort of thing to do. So I dig it. Thanks for not judging me, Tommy.
I'm judging you over here a little bit now.
That's all right. Suck it, right?
I had a question about if you mentioned like a very simple kind of getup and maybe very kind of loud shoes, and that to me kind of reminded me a bit of a design principle of like balance in a way. There's a bit of like it's a little asymmetrical there. And in design, you have several principles. You have typography, you have lines, you have balance, space, things like that. What would you say are like the principles of design in that way that are just like these kind of vague concepts that a person with really good fashion sense kind of adheres to these sort of principles in one way or another in their own unique way?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about one of them already and that like choosing the right balance. And that's, I think, one of the things you see with people that stop you in the street and you're like, wow, this person really has their shit together. It kind of boils down to balance, like finding those things, but obviously fit and silhouette, like finding silhouettes that fit your body type.
Silhouettes. What's that?
So, we use it a lot in terms of like, if you see a shirt from one brand, they make it with a button down collar and it's got all these features and that's its silhouette. So it can be used in that way. Like this silhouette versus that silhouette and using this fabric in this silhouette, but silhouetting is like the way, it kind of lays on you and fits you, and it's draping too, but like, choosing stuff that's right for your body type, all kind of is involved in that. I'm trying to think of like, I need like 5 core principles. It's like a pop quiz. I think like one of the main ones for me that's kind of probably like a subversion of that, and not necessarily in those main rules, is like the way your pants fit with your shoes. This is like a little like just a tip of mine. Like choosing the right pant shoe combo is a huge deal. That was something I learned like really early on. The way your pants drape, the amount of break that you have, these things that you learn about in suiting transfers to jeans too. You see a lot of people that look sloppy because they get a big wide pair of pants, and a lot of the times it's a symptom of the industry. People get worn out, they get sweaty in a dressing room, they're just sick and tired of trying stuff on, and they want a pair of pants. But finding that right pair of pants that sits right with you, is tailored appropriately, and even doing that in like your most casual stuff. People think that shit's reserved for suiting. They think it's reserved for only professional wear. But like, if you find a pair of pants that you like the way it fits in your ass and your thighs, but it's sloppy and it's hanging down on your shoes and you're walking on it, or it just sits oddly and doesn't show the silhouette of the shoe again. Like, I use that word a lot as kind of just a precursor for the shape of things. Silhouette is almost like shape to me at this point. Like, okay, if you're not showing the right shaping of the shoe, if the cool part of the shoe is up top and you're covering it up with your jeans, like that's one of the big factors for me. I think a lot of people have an easier time with shirting, right? You know when a shirt fits you right, you know when it sits properly on your shoulders. But I think one of the main things about when you see someone walking down the street that has their shit together, they know balance and shape in the way their jeans lead into their feet. And it's kind of like it's a out there concept, but some people just like lock in on that, and it works really well. And then like you could get into other avenues of it too. Like, everybody should have a solid white t-shirt, a solid black t-shirt, a solid blue t-shirt. Everyone should have a white button down and a black button down, or button up. And there is a difference between those two. Button down is when the collar button's down, and button up is when it doesn't. So more formal styles won't have buttons on the collars, and that's shifted over time too. You see a lot earlier in history where people wore button downs with really thin ties, but a button up is more common in with like collar stays in the suiting world now. So having those like core things in your lineup, and it's easier for guys to like having a classic button up is essential to having a proper wardrobe. A dark pair of jeans, a pair of jeans that's kind of worn in, brown pair of boots. Like, before you ever even move into black, you should probably have brown, because that usually works more with earth tones, sticking more with earth tones than going with pastels and vibrant colors that clash with each other. So a lot of it's balance. And then when you get to the next level of it, the higher levels of it, you're talking about like everyone should have a solid jacket, leather jacket, like that. If you really care about fashion and care about a staple wardrobe, like a leather jacket should be in that somewhere, and finding whether it's the black one that goes better with your wardrobe. If you wear more that color palette, if you wear more earth tones, wearing a brown, like choosing those things, are really like, it's a really big thing for a lot of our customers that are trying to simplify their wardrobes. Mm-hmm. They're like, I need this one and it has to be exactly right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's true too. Not getting frustrated, taking the mindset you have for that thing you nerd out about. If you're into electronics, you're not just going to go on Amazon and buy the whatever, you're going to do your research. You're going to take your time. Clothing has become this thing for people that's so, passe, I guess, or I don't know if I'm using that properly, but like laissez-faire, I guess, is more what I'm looking for. Like I'll buy that t-shirt because it's $5. Fuck it. Don't care about it. Like taking the time to care again is important. And if you can't get past that first step, the time to care, then it really isn't going to matter. There's not like a BuzzFeed of how to dress, you know, your top 5. But there are principles that we can like teach you, and it starts with fit, and it leads into like choosing the right pieces that will last you a lifetime.
That's interesting because the fit is like the first thing that got me to start caring a little bit, because when I, bursted up as a teenager, I'm 6'5". So, I was wearing large t-shirts, and they were just kind of baggy and hanging and everything. And
just to get the right length.
Yeah. Just to get the right length. And I never gave it any thought until I was at a JCPenney and I came across a rack of, some t-shirts and I think some button-up shirts. And I looked at the size on them, and they were medium tall. I'm like, medium tall? I haven't seen that before. Usually it's large tall, and like even those are still a little bit
tall,
too.
Yeah,
even those are still too big for me. So I tried them on, and they fit perfect. And I'm like, oh my god, I bought all of them that day because I don't get that luxury. So I guess first of all, do you have any stuff for tall, skinny guys here? Because we are not well accommodated for anywhere.
Yeah, that's a general thing too that's been hard in a boutique setting. Like we already have a very curated selection, so we have to try to hit the broadest market possible. A lot of people have caught slack, right? Like over time, these moguls that are like, we don't serve fat people and we don't serve blah, blah, blah. And then the internet jumps on them. And in their scenarios, they have the means. They just are so focused on the bottom line still that they want to hit the broadest range of customers. Or sorry, it's a narrow range of customers, but the widest, which is the mediums to the larges and the normal sizes. Like abnormal sizes are harder to fit, right? Because where you're 6'3", the next guy's 6'5", and so that extra 2 inches that helps you doesn't help the next guy. And we work really hard to try to find stuff within the brands that do produce it. So like one of our brands produces tall tees, and we look more into that, or we special order where we need to. And some of the more homogenous, bigger brands will carry tall sizes, and we try to special order those. But a lot of the times we have a hard enough time selling like our small through XL and small through double XL. The mediums and larges will disappear, and then we're sitting with these sizes. And then the common misconception is that we don't carry sizes for bigger guys, or we don't carry sizes that'll fit bigger guys. And what happens a lot of the times too is that you don't even necessarily need to buy a medium tall, right? Because those medium talls you were buying were probably American sizing, so they were wider by nature. And then you had to size down to a medium, where with us, you size up to a large, it's still slim, but it's longer. So we find these workarounds, and we try to special order as much as we can. But with the size of the space, if we had 15 stores, it'd be a lot easier. And I think that was always something that got to me. Like I wanted to hit a broader range of people, and I had to let it go just to have like peace of mind, because it's nearly impossible unless you focus it that way, right? That's why there's big and tall stores, and that you don't go into a big and tall store looking for a medium regular. Like they're built that way to reach that sector of the market. And if they tried to do too much, the concept would just, be null and void. The concept would fail. So we had to, we have to, like most boutiques, do that. And I think had I been like 6'9", that would have been more my focus. Like I would have been like, I'm going to spend all my time finding brands that only make tall stuff. So it's a symptom of me being the size that I am too, and finding stuff for, me too, stuff that I can wear, stuff that I can model. But we really do our best to like accommodate. It can just be tough sometimes.
Yeah. It's certainly tough. I was pretty stoked when I found that Target was selling t-shirts online for $12 a pop that were medium tall and that actually fit. That's what this is right here. So this is pretty good as far as shirts for me go. So like band shirts are usually out of the question unless I,
size way up
and maybe hit somebody that get an alteration store. But sometimes that's kind of rolling the dice there. Sometimes it's perfect and sometimes it's too tight. And at that point it's just kind of ruined,
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we've found with a lot of our guys are taller, bigger, wider, whatever it is, guys that shop in this world and shop in this industry is they love it so much, and they understand that the manufacturers don't have the capacity to have this, even the storage space to have different inseam lengths when they do pants, different different mediums and mediums talls, medium regular. Like they don't have that capacity as they haven't grown to that size yet. And they realize that and they love it enough that a lot of guys will go have it tailored, go have it taken in. And you have to find a really good tailor, which can be a hard process. You can lose money along the way and people get disenfranchised. So I think it's a matter of like, if you really, really love it, and I know that's a big ask, but that is the case with almost every other industry. When people really love stuff, they make it work for them. And I think what helps with that, because it's a fucking ask. I know it fucking sucks. I know like having things hemmed when you're short sucks. It's one of my problems. But the idea that we're not pushing massive volumes of stuff on people. We don't want you to buy the $12 t-shirt that's going to bag out or not look good after 5 washes. We want you to buy the one t-shirt that costs $45 or $50 that is going to last and look good. People are more willing to have it altered, more willing to get stuff taken in and find those options.
That makes sense.
I'm sure that in a perfect world, you'd never have to, go and get your clothing altered there, Ryan, just because of your freakish physical size.
I am not accommodated anywhere. Even those big and tall stores, they're big and tall. They're not big, tall,
Right.
and skinny. So
Yeah.
I'm just...
You're a very specific sector. Like one of the things we have had really good luck with though, is because of this problem I talked about with storage space and size of manufacturing. Most of our denim comes in like a 34 inseam. So we've had to find ways to specifically cuff it for dudes who are like average size, whatever the fuck that is. And we accommodate a lot of guys that are in that like 6'5", 6'7" range even, because we have brands that go up to 36 and it's 36 inseam and it comes that way. And then you got to figure that shit out. So like you can feel good that the shorter guys are getting a punch in the nuts if they want this stuff, because they got to go take it and have it altered. But it is limited to that. And we found little areas to kind of weasel our way in and find ways to get guys into stuff. We have a couple really tall guys that love it here because of that. So yeah.
Nice.
Well, and so for outliers like Ryan or other people who are not within like the broader scope of average American sizings, Ryan is just happy enough to find something off the rack that fits well. What about, can you speak to more of the benefit overall of just dressing with a little bit of intention? I mean, what would motivate a person to do so, or what sort of benefit might a person come across other than just finally finding something that fits my 6'5" frame? Like why would, I don't know if I'm just like digging myself into a hole here, but like, why would a person choose to,
if they hadn't already,
adopt a style? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have people come to us at all different stages in their life. Like we had a guy come about 2 weeks ago, and not to like put him on blast or anything, but he would only know by the story, I guess, that had gone through a transition in his life, whether it was brought on by COVID or whatever, where he had time to reflect on the way he had been dressing previously. And he had already had the motivation to dress a certain way. And I think we all do, even though people, like, there are outliers or people that are outside of that, but they dress a certain way to live up to expectations. The most clear form of that is like wearing your favorite sports team shirt.
Sure.
People do that to fit into a group of people. And that's essentially what he came to us with. I mean, speaking like anecdotally, that's where I see it, is when someone's like, I'm sick of who I was trying to be in the past, and I'm trying to find a path towards who I actually am. And so they'll come to us and be like, these are the things that I like. Can you help me with this? I think I'm not trying to in any way like force anyone to be into this that's not. So there's a certain level where you just have to let it go, right?
Yeah.
You have to, or you worry yourself to death. The level of anxiety trying to fit everyone's expectations would be really hard. And I've learned that a lot more over the past few years. But I think it's that initial ask, right? Like, I think this is really interesting and I really like look good. And to speak to the reasons why maybe people would do that overall. I mean, there's like the obvious ones, like you're trying to impress someone, you're dating someone new, or you have a job and you really want to look a certain way for that job. We tend to deal more in the world of the love of the product or the love of this, and it's already a precursor. You know, it's easy. I mean, I'm not saying that that's not like the easy route to it, right? Like finding guys that care about what we do already.
Sure.
But the reality is there's not necessarily enough of those guys to keep a market going. So you do have to find ways to bring people in. And I think a lot of it is just us being like jazzed and stoked about stuff and trying to level with people, and then it happens more naturally. But I think it's a form of utility too. Like you work in a world where like things need to hold up.
Sure.
And if you found something that did, you would probably be more prone to buy it. Or things that have a little bit of stretch because you're very active, because you're working in a world where you have to move a lot. Like we try to get on the level with people with that too. And I think all we can really do is, you know, be as jazzed about these products as we can, and then try to find that balance and find that level ground with people that are interested in it. And I think like for you saying the Indy 500 shirt that you bought, that was probably more a symptom of, not to like put words in your mouth, but being in here and enjoying the space and wanting to find something that fit and wanting to find something that you would be comfortable in. And so, even if you didn't need it, you found a way to get it. Like, and we have to be more active about figuring out those things for people too. Like figuring out, well, he got this piece because he really wanted to support us, so we need to do what we can to support him.
Yeah. Well, and just that particular purchase, the price was right. It fit. It looked nice. Had a cool, like retro indie vibe to it. And, you know, I don't give a shit about the Indy 500 necessarily. Like, give me a free ticket, I'll go and I'll have a great time, but I'm not going out of my way. Right. But, you know, it speaks to the local culture, and it worked. And I thought it fit my own personal, like whatever my own personal style is. It definitely kind of fit within that, but
yeah.
But you started to touch on something, I think. So, and tell me if you would say that this statement is accurate, but would it be fair to say that for at least some people, right, embarking on the journey, because it seems to me like it would certainly be a journey, but trying to hone in what that style is, that personal thing that leads you more from dressing to serve other people and more to express yourself, would you say that that's almost a component of self-discovery on the whole? Yeah,
I mean, talking about reasons why someone would make that change, and why, like, we've had these stories of people come in and be like, I have a date, or I have this, or I have whatever. Not like putting that down or anything, but it can be the catalyst to getting someone to discover something about themselves.
Sure.
And so we try to take advantage of that. We try to take advantage of whatever will get someone in here so that we can tell them our story and talk about that and help them on that path to, I want to dress this way because it makes me feel good, not because it makes someone else say, oh shit, what are you wearing? Like, I don't go out looking for someone to do that. Yeah, it feels good. Like self-validation feels,
sure.
Or sorry, not self, but the other way around, like validation from others feels great, but we're ultimately working towards like self-validation. The concept of looking in the mirror to me was never a vain one. It was getting into something that felt good to me, looking in the mirror before I leave the house, seeing how something looks on myself is always internal. It's not like, oh, my friends are going to think like the way this flows together and the balance that's happening here between what I'm wearing is going to make my life better. This makes me feel better. And I let myself feel bad about it for a while. You know, you're in an industry that is vain. It's by its nature vain. And if we could, as a society, we'd all just be fucking naked. Right. But we at some point decided that, like, the way we dress ourselves and present ourselves to the world is important. And if that's something that resonates with you and can be a positive versus a negative, something that you dwell on and, you know, something that causes you pain, if it's something that brings you joy, like why not jump headfirst into that? And that's what it was for me. It was the one thing that truly resonated with me when I was in that phase of my life where I was, you know, lost and trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I had a million ideas about what I was going to, you know, do in college and do after. And the one thing that I kept coming back to is I fucking love clothing. Like, if I love it this much, why am I not trying to make it a career and trying to find ways to make myself feel the way I feel about it for other people, you know? So yeah, that's where it's landed for me. But I think the people that you see that have street style, you can tell when it's forced.
Sure.
You can tell if you go to a fashion show and everyone's trying to keep up with everyone else, and you see people wearing these extreme things just to be the next best thing, and you see the guy sitting in the corner that has on that's there for the show too, but has on his favorite pair of jeans and a really nice shirt that he really likes and his favorite pair of shoes, and it fits his style and the balance is there, he's going to draw more attention because it's not this outward projection. It's internal, you know, it's there. He's got this level of like zen,
kind of like he owns the world, right?
Yeah.
Just
And
got
that's,
that easy sensibility.
To talk about it in the most like simple forms, like the most interesting man in the world, like it's not because of the way he dresses. He dresses nice because like he was the most interesting man in the world in those commercials, but like that's not what is interesting about that person. It's the draw they have from other people. And I mean, this is deep as shit. People are going to be like, this fucking guy, like, but it's been like a journey of self-discovery for me through clothing and like repairing, you know, scars versus like creating more. This industry can like create scars in people.
Sure.
And, yeah, like it's definitely like that journey for me. And that's what I try to like portray for other people.
Right on.
I definitely like that sense that, you know, when it's being nailed, it's doing something to kind of reflect the vibe of that person. Like sort of almost like the fashion kind of augments their own personality and just kind of puts a little bit of what's on the inside to the outside. And then I also feel there's a strong parallel with that, with just this magnificent space that you've created, because that's the vibe. It's just this complete vibe, you know, every little thing just supports that vibe. And it's very clear that this is an extension of yourself, you know, that this store is you. I mean, you may have not created it specifically for you, but this is you on the outside, and it's great, man. It smells wonderful in here. I love it.
It reads very clearly like this is an outward expression of some of what's contained within your heart.
Yes.
You know?
Thank you. Man.
Yes.
That's all I can hope for.
Thank you for breathing into life a place like this where clueless, hapless people like myself can actually come and maybe find a little bit of inspiration and you know, maybe for some, you know, some of what you offer might be outside of like the allowable price range for some folks, but just by coming in and browsing or just by following you on social media, that might give someone some inspiration to aspire to a little bit something more, or at least give them a little bit of direction. You know, maybe they're just hardcore into thrifting, but now they've got something to look for, which, I mean, that can be a very powerful thing. I could see, you know, someone who didn't have much confidence before, all of a sudden finding that just the right pair of shoes, like just change their entire life. And that's a crazy concept to me. It's something that before this conversation right now, I never would have really considered, but thank you for showing me the power and value in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has definitely got my brain swimming, thinking about, you know, possibilities and stuff. And I think one of these days I'm gonna have to pop in here and just vibe with you guys and see what's going on. Like one of the things I keep coming back to is just like, like my tattoo on my right arm is unfinished. And like every time I see myself in a picture and I see that it's unfinished, I'm like, it's unfinished. Like I need that. I need this to be a complete thing before I can really work with like short sleeves and stuff. But yeah, thank you for sharing so much about like not just what you do here, but fashion in general to both of us, where we're just kind of operating at kind of the bare minimum. It's just like, okay, most of the body's covered. We're good to go. And kind of to jump back on one of the previous things you were saying, one of the ways that I've heard it before is like you kind of dress for your audience in a way that like you dressing appropriate when you leave the house. It kind of shows respect for the people that you're going to be around, you know, and that absolutely is important. But,
yeah. I think I've probably, I don't know if I just don't think about it as much, because it's so like innate. Like if you're going to a wedding, you dress this way. If you're going to this, you dress this way. And a lot of times people struggle with it because it brings them anxiety. But it really is like something that's becoming less and less commonplace. But that general concept, right? So if you're going to a wedding, there's a general vibe, and like the old standard of everybody's got to wear a blue or black suit, everybody's got to have a white button up, everybody's got to have a tie has gone out the window. But this new wave of this is what a wedding looks like. And it's all about effort, right? It's all about like, if you really care about the people you're going to the wedding for, if you're not, why the fuck are you going? But if you do and you care, you're going to be around people that you like, that have this general sense of like who the couple are and what they're doing. And you can blend all of those things together into what you're wearing and choose to do it in a way that's not the tradition, that's not formal, but works for that wedding and works for you personally. And I think there's a lot of joy in that for me. I don't know that it is for other people. Like I said, it can be anxiety inducing, but I hope like we can push people to that, like push people to be like, this is a fun thing. Like if everything you're doing in this life, this world can be pretty fucked up. If you're doing anything, do it with intention. And we talked a lot about this earlier, the intention of people coming to the store now that COVID is taking over the world. Like the intention to come here, to book an appointment. Intention is such an important thing for us outside of clothing. And I think that can help. Like if you live your life with more intention, it helps dictate the type of food that you eat, the type of people. When you make the decision that you're going to support local businesses, there's certain places you go to eat and the price point becomes less of a thing. You manage, like I said, people find ways to spend money we're all working for something. If you're working to make money, you're working to spend money on something. And those people dictate how they spend it based on the things they nerd out on. But once you make that leap, once you make that decision, I'm going to support Hotel Tango because I love the story and it doesn't matter what a bottle costs. Like I'm going to pick up a bottle when I see it next to the other bottle of gin, you know, like when you make that decision, it transfers to other things in your life too. And I think we're trying to bring people back to this local community where that decision didn't used to have to be a decision. You know, it was innate. Like it happened out of ease almost. Like we want to make it easy for people to make that decision now. And I think that split is happening. That's why you see malls failing. That's why you see retail not doing as well, because they're living under this this umbrella idea that this is how retail is done. And it trickles down even to the way people treat people in retail. Zach says all the time, like, I chose this career path. I'm not a college kid that needed a job. I chose to work in this industry for 15 years because I think there's value in it. And I am a professional. And I think trying to change that mentality for people, it's the same way with servers. Servers they're not doing this as a high school hobby anymore. They're not doing it as a stepping stone. Like most servers enjoy what they do and they're fucking good at it, and people should treat them like they're professionals. And I think we are attempting to shift that narrative. And as a community of local businesses and small businesses, we're all trying to shift that narrative to where it's just an understood thing that, like, with a level of service and experience and care put behind and thought behind what you do comes a price. And that price almost falls away once you understand everything that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, art is worth paying for at the end of the day. And artistry is all around us. It sounds very much like Zach is a retail artist. And I know that might sound, to some people's ears, that might sound like a ridiculous statement, but I think that it's important to recognize the validity of that statement, because that's kind of that's the essence of everything. Like, anything worth doing is worth doing well. And it's the same thing if you're talking about a career or an industry or even attending a wedding. Like, if you don't give a shit, why are you here? I mean, that's
good point.
Yeah.
Why are you here in your sweatpants? What the fuck are you doing?
Well, I'm here in these sweatpants because they used to be my favorite sweatpants, and then they got a big hole in them, and I cut them off.
I wasn't talking to you, but okay.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's a joke.
No one can see. The camera's up too high.
Yeah, I couldn't see your sweatpants. I didn't even know you were wearing sweatpants.
Well, they're sweat shorts at this point.
Gotcha.
The good old sweat shorts. That's like a total uncle move.
Yeah. It's more dad status these days, but
yeah. I love your emphasis on intention. That's something that's come up several times, and that's just, it's so powerful for like whatever you're doing. And right now we're doing a podcast for creatives, for anybody interested in the creative process to see how things are done, see how things are hear rather how artists are thinking about their personal process, bringing something from nothing to something. And that can look a lot of different ways. There may be people listening to this that aren't really that creative in their personal life. They just like hearing it, but it all really does come down to intention. That's going to be a really consistent thread, is that the people that are doing things, they have to really decide to do something. And it comes down to like a focus of energy. And there's a lot of focus and energy around here. I keep coming back to it, but just like, that's the way I interpret it. When I look at detail in a painting, and I look at detail at like the way things are specifically placed, the emphasis on smell, you have a freaking cork table here. Like, I look at those things, and those are like, that's like little channels of energy and very specific intention. And I feel like you can feel it when you walk in here. Just immediately you're hit with this vibe. So we're really getting up there on time, so I think we should start winding it down. But one of the questions that I had tailing on that is you say that people need to book an appointment to come in here and basically look around, talk with you guys and stuff. First of all, how can they book an appointment with you? And secondly, like, what can they expect from that experience? Yeah,
so it was a learning curve for us too, right? Like we looked to some of the models of our friends that had developed, by nature, barbershops. They developed a system of getting people in, and it's intentional. You're going to get a haircut, to come back to that word. So we set up a system through Calendly at the moment. It's really nice because we only book half hour and 1 hour slots at a time. And so right now it really does keep us all separate. It keeps too many people from being in here at once. We have time to wipe down, to clean, to do all those things. And our focus is keeping it like that right now. In the future, we hope that the appointment system is something where we can have a couple parties in here at once. But because of that, the I don't want to say barrier, because it's not a barrier, but the time setup, every appointment that comes in is the attention to that person paid is insane, right? Like, it's what we could give people if no one walked through the front door that didn't have anything to do with us, or did want something to do with us, wanted a piece of us, They get these people get the full pizza. You're not just getting a slice of like the knowledge that we have and the new product that we have and the things that we can tell you and the help we can give you with fits. You're getting that as an individual, sometimes from two people. And I think it can seem intimidating for people, but if they imagine it kind of like us just sitting down for a podcast right now, that's what this is. Like, it always was before when people came in. It was a conversation. It was it was about their families. It was about how they're doing. It's not as straight to the point. There's no hard sales. It's none of that shit. And I think just because of that, the level of intention is up and people do feel more willing to pick up stuff. But we've given them such an experience when they come in that people are really latching onto it, and it's picked up. And we had to take that learning curve and learn to talk about it more and normalize an appointment, because a lot of the times appointments came with this level of pretension. It was like, well, if you want an appointment, lay down $150 before you come in. And it's stuff like that. Like you better be willing to spend money before you come in. And by not doing that, it almost lends more to that happening. It happens more naturally. People come in with this idea, I want a pair of pants, and we're going to fucking find you those pair of pants, where we may spend a half an hour bouncing around, working on other things, helping people at the front door, making sure people don't steal shit normally. Yeah. And now we don't have to do that. We can just focus solely on you. It becomes more like a one-on-one, one-on-two session. And it's been really, really great. Like, I think for everyone, we keep getting emails from people saying like, hey, I really appreciated you guys the other day. Like, I have a hard time shopping sometimes, and it was really great to just be in there one-on-one with you, and you guys weren't bullshitting me, and you were finding me stuff that I wanted. So that's what they can expect. They can expect a really, truly personalized experience. No real, I guess, like, expectations. Like, there's no expectations when someone comes in here. We just we really like to see people right now, because we've been withheld from that. So we really enjoy that part of it. Expect good conversation. Expect when things are less rigid to, like, for us to get you a nice beverage and hang out. And when we continue on this path of appointments in the future, for that to be the same thing, for it to be the same way in the future.
It's awesome.
I think this is going to start becoming more of a thing, man. That's just like, you've taken the clothes shopping experience and you've turned it into this, like, carefully, like, curated and intentional thing. And it's like, it's not original by any means. Like, I think that's what happens a lot, is people get bogged down with the idea of having to be the most original. And it's like, there is hardly an original thought anymore. Like, it's really hard. Appointments have been a thing for a really long time. They were just done in a different way. So evolving and doing it the way we do it is just what suits us and what suits our customer base. And we want people to feel comfortable with it. And that's the most important thing to us. Now, unfortunately for our listeners, this is only exclusively available to anyone willing to come to Indianapolis in the Irvington neighborhood. We hope to generate a nationwide, perhaps worldwide audience, and unfortunately you can't download the vibe. I mean, you can give a sense of the store, but man, you can't replace what it's like to actually be in here.
That's one of the things we've worked really hard on, is trying to give that through stories, through Instagram. You did ask how they can do it. It's very simple. It's on the website, and there's just in the main menu, there's a place to book an appointment. It will take you to a sub-site to book it, but it still looks very much like us. It has the feel. There's actually a little cartoon character of me like snapping in the air to kind of make people feel more comfortable, and like it's a more personalized experience. But it's right there on the main menu. But one of the things we talked about earlier is how I had worked on making the website like this. Nothing's ever going to be this. This retail experience will always be this. And that's one of the things I feel comfort in being a retailer, that people can't mimic this. Like, you can't mimic the buzzword of the fucking decade, authenticity, but you really can't. And intention plays a huge role in that too. And I think that should become the new word. Like, with intention comes authenticity. You can try to fake authenticity, but if your intentions are bad behind it, it's not going to be real. And that's where we feel comfort in doing what we do, is that we develop that sense of authenticity, and we try to transfer that the best we can. And we have developed this global community that follow us now, the same way you guys are about to.
Thanks for the confidence. I appreciate that.
And we just want to try to transfer that experience as much as we can. But to plug myself a little bit, if you want to check that out,
please plug away.
Lay it on us.
JamesDant.com, as simple as it comes. It's pretty straightforward, and you can see a little bit of what we're doing. And keep up with our Instagram. That's where we really kind of act like fools and dork out and nerd out on stuff and kind of show the full package right now, because it's hard to in person with everybody. So people around the world right now are actually getting more of the experience than they ever could before, and it's a real nice excuse for people to escape some of the craziness of the world right now to keep up with us and to vibe with us on social media.
Yeah, you guys do a great job of exhibiting the new stuff that you get in, the way that you I assume that's Zach that's doing some of the co-modeling with you.
Yeah.
But breaking down, like the stitching, the patterns. I watched you guys got a bunch of new shirts in.
The t-shirts?
No, I don't think they were t-shirts. They were button downs, like Western style.
Yeah.
And this was, I don't know, probably early in COVID quarantine era, but just hearing the way you guys were breaking down the panel stitching and some of the very, very fine details that I would have never even thought to consider. It's a really, really cool experience, even not being here in the store, because I had been here in the store before, and it very much brought me back to that moment, the way you guys were kind of digging into it. So yeah, thanks for that. That's good, a good way of giving people that, don't have an easy way of getting here an opportunity to really catch that vibe.
Yeah.
So, all right. And your inventory, is your entire inventory available online?
Essentially, it's getting closer and closer. It's like every month we probably get another percentage of it online. The main problem with that is, like, we had started the store first. So if you have stuff that's been like some of the bags and some of the things that aren't really seasonal and we're not trying to like shift through and get rid of, and that stuff was a little harder to get up than brand new products. So we started with a new product first, and we got a lot of the apothecary up, and nearly every day I find something where I'm like, shit, how is that not online yet? So essentially everything new, as long as we can get photos of it, is going to go online. And so we're probably about 89-90% right now of what's in here is online.
All right.
Yeah.
And okay, so jamesdant.com for online sales and all the fun website stuff, but Instagram is James Dant Purveyors, is that right?
Yes. So yeah, if somebody has the name James Dant, I've been trying to get it from them, but they won't come off it. So yeah, it's our Instagram is our main, like, it's like tapping into the vein of James Dant right now. Like it's just the main source of keeping up with us if you can't be here. Obviously the website has a purpose as an e-commerce site. So there's some stuff on there, the story, things like that. But if you really want to tap into what we're doing and keep up with us, it's through Instagram.
Yeah. Instagram seems like the perfect platform for you guys, just to give as much of the vibe as you possibly can on a social media platform. And it's not being torn asunder right now. So this is Instagram's good. Yeah.
That said, I can't wait for your big TikTok debut.
Nice.
But all right. Well, anything else you'd like to shout out, your own or anyone else's?
Oh man. I think right now for me, it's about trying to support Indianapolis and keep things moving as much as possible. I know that's, for people listening outside, it's not as much possible, but support your community. Like, if that hasn't somehow reached you yet, like, that it's important to support the people around you, and that putting money in the pockets of people that you can see the direct effects of in your community is extremely important. I don't know where you've been for the last 10 years, but keep doing that, especially right now. Let's not make the billionaires more billions right now. Let's support our local friends and try to keep Indy on this beautiful path of renaissance that we've been on for over a decade now.
It is a much better time to be a resident here locally.
That's for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Tommy, thanks a ton, man. This has been every bit the conversation that I had hoped it was going to be. We definitely covered some pretty extensive territory, not only in your own backstory, but also just, kind of what's driving you to to do all of this, and hopefully we'll do some quick flogging on our way out, so all of our followers can get a chance to really soak in that vibe. But hopefully they give you a follow and maybe even sample some of your wares there online or in person. They should definitely be following us on Instagram as well. Don't know why the hell you wouldn't if you're already listening. I mean, come on. but
Forging Flame.
Forging Flame.
Nobody had it.
Yeah, it's ours. But yeah, thanks, and
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming in.
Peace.
Bye.